This is going to be our second poll. So, Craig, I know you love this one. If you want to take it away.
Yeah, so we're trying to figure out how to quantify the three memes that we had going up right now. Really, the question is, what is the meme that most resonates with how you feel about the RAM pricing? I think it's been one of the most common pain points for anybody trying to acquire new IT hardware right now. I know I'm represented I'm kind of a big deal. I, by sheer luck alone, bought my consumer RAM back in like January
Oh,
2025 when it was cheap, and I paid like $250 for 64 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM that's now worth like over 1,000. Insane to think about. But yeah, it looks like other people are living that patient life, waiting for the AI
yeah,
bubble to burst so they can buy a bunch of RAM for cheap, which, boy, howdy will it when we move into that inference structure.
yeah. I'm definitely the jealous one on the right here. Patience is a virtue. I waited a little bit too long and I'm upside down right now. So I'm going to wait it out for a little bit longer.
Yeah, and
That's
it's
great.
it's kind of interesting thinking about, having actual companies like looking at AI infrastructure as an investment, right? I mentioned how some clients are holding on to equipment or they've asked if they should be holding on to equipment. We can move to the next slide and I'll start talking about
Yeah.
the secondary market.
Yep.
Um, Really, the reality is that the secondary market is so high because the primary market is so much higher. I had to have this conversation with a lot of my partners who work for MSPs or VARs to advise their clients on like how do I best utilize the value of my outgoing equipment, and really the answer is always right now. Um, New equipment is probably 3 or 4 or maybe 5 times more expensive than what it was 12 months ago. But in the secondary market, it's less. It's 2 or 3 or 4 times respectively. So if you're holding on to equipment thinking that it's scaling at the same rate as new equipment, it's probably not. It's most likely that your equipment is gone up in value, which is good, but it's flattened out, whereas new equipment is still climbing. And it's just because people want your new stuff more than they want your old stuff. This is probably more comparable to like back in 2020 with COVID shifting everybody to a work from home landscape. The demand for laptops and like computer monitors and docking stations and this whole work from home setups went way, way, way up because there was just such a high demand for it. And now we're seeing that with RAM and CPU and GPU. And of course, as we move into AI inference, we're going to start seeing that more with like real estate, like data center real estate. And you're already seeing it with power and water. And it's going to come down to like, fiber. Fiber is probably going to go way the heck up in price because people are demanding it to speed up their communications. So when we're advising clients on how to time the market, it's usually just do it right now. Make sure you understand when you get a report back from your partner, your ITAD partner, what are you seeing? Where was the equipment sold? What kind of values were I getting from it, and why? And that level of trust is really how we inform them, or I'm sorry, we build that level of trust, which helps them to understand what they're getting. Because the reality is that the secondary market's really hot right now, but individual people aren't probably going to be able to manage that as much as we are given our relationships. And this is the same for many of your ITADs, except we take it a step further with the transparency that we deliver in the reporting.
Yeah. Now, Craig, can you kind of tap into how the hyperscalers are impacting the secondary market right now?
Yes, because boy are they. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
I said, I think in the last slide, the hyperscalers are like consuming, I think, up to 2 years of new AI components, like AI ready components, CPUs, GPUs, even hard drives and solid state drives, and of course RAM. They've bought out like 2 years worth of all of this equipment. So if you're a 10,000 employee company, you're still significant, but you're not going to compete with Google or Meta or XAI or these hyperscalers that are building these and operating these massive data centers. So you are now tasked with this issue where I can't get the new equipment that I need. So how do I make my application strategy work with this secondary market full of equipment? And really, it's just about getting your hands on it from the right people, making sure it's ready to go, and again, like just being prepared to move your equipment out as soon as you can. It's again, I used the word nimble earlier, right? It's about being able to react quickly for when the dam opens up and you get a little bit more supply where you can find it. And that extends out to power and cooling and water. And those aren't exactly our areas of expertise, but they're very central in the conversation right now as folks are planning on building out these new data centers.
Yeah, and Craig, I know, we're really focused on data center here, but when you look at the impact it's having really across all the different asset types, can you spend a few minutes there as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise. We just mentioned how like it's affecting consumer RAM, and pretty much every modern device that is a computer has RAM in it today, even your phones. It's just, this bottleneck for this RAM is causing all these devices to go up in value and cost, of course, to the consumer, which means it's more expensive for companies to buy. I spoke about this moments ago where it's like companies that might have been planning to purchase like 1,000 new laptops this year to refresh part of their inventory. Maybe they can't afford that now. Maybe they can only afford 200 now. So how do we help them to draw value from the existing infrastructure? It probably means like collecting those assets, wiping them, re-imaging them, and redeploying them to other people in their environment that can make use of them. I think it's also worth mentioning too that these hyperscalers influencing the price of RAM, things like DDR4 RAM that people were really in high demand of around October of last year through February, they're finding DDR4 is not really cutting it. And then you also have announcements like Google's that new AI algorithm that they came up with compresses the data up to 6 times, which is increasing the efficiency of RAM. That's also causing these market demands to go up and down. So as companies and individuals are creating new technologies to solve for some of the problems caused by the AI boom, it's also affecting the influence of these pricings on the second market. Google, the day that Google made that announcement for that AI crunch algorithm, we saw that was one of the big days where secondary market RAM flatlined, and we had several of our purchasers reach out to us and say, "Hey, we're holding off on buying RAM until we know what's going to happen as a result of that announcement," because that's just game-changing technology, right?
Gosh, it's almost like the stock market for your decommissioned assets. That's basically what we're playing here. So,
Yeah.
when we look at what are the steps that organizations can take to really, again, get the best outcomes, what is that going to look like?
It comes down to, again, just understanding the process in advance, right? Like, hey, we've got three different objectives we're working with our ITAD. One, absolutely, we want to recover some value from our end of life equipment, right? Like that's really important to us. We know this stuff has value to it. We could use the extra value into our IT budget, so we need to make sure that we have this resale program that we understand that we're getting transparent reporting on an item by item level. Two, it's about protecting the security and governance. Like every organization that's processing any data needs to protect it. So certified end of life is important, can't be compromised. Having a partner and understanding how that process works, what data destruction methods they're using is incredibly valuable. I mean, it's paramount, I would say. Like most of the time when we're talking with companies, their priority is the data security. Secondary market values is probably number two or three. And then the third point is the environmental data, right? And we're going to touch a little bit more on this here shortly, but what is the environmental impact of repurposing this equipment or recycling this equipment if we have to? Companies are under more pressure nowadays by both communities and the government to, recycle or reuse equipment and reduce their scope three, improve their carbon footprint, improve their ESG metrics. And so we make a really strong effort to quantify that data so that companies can actually have like actual data behind the reuse or the recycling of their materials. And again, that's all part of a successful program. It's not just about the resale. It's not just about the governance. It's not just about the environmental. It's not just about the data security, but it's about all of these things put together into a full services based partner to enhance their IT strategy.